If you've ever read or tried to write a screenplay, you've probably seen the little parentheses below a character's name, giving short directions on how an actor should say a line. But how are these supposed to be used in the proper way? That's what we'll cover in this video.
Okay, Wrylies. Now, this name comes from the way this was originally used. You can imagine in the early days of screenwriting, they wanted somebody to say something a certain way, didn't want those actors to think for themselves, silly folks. And so they would say, Lucia, Wrylie, meaning W-R-Y-L-Y, meaning to say something in a wry fashion. It would be Wrylie, in parentheses, to say, well, let's go back, to add the emotion to the way the line is said. And then over the years, that just became what this thing was called. This parenthetical thing right here was just called a Wrylie. But those are bad. They're bad if you're trying to use them to tell someone an emotion. You should use them sparingly. You're never going to use pronouns. So it's not going to be she whispers. It's going to be whispering. Or into phone, right? Instead of she talks into the phone. Or she's on the phone. It's just talking into phone. Or into phone. It's very short, as much as you can make it. Don't use pronouns. It's normally going to be ing to describe the way that something is happening if it's necessary for the story. And that is a theme you're going to see again and again with this kind of stuff. So look at this one from the Maltese Falcon. A trace of spitefulness comes into her voice, leans over for a view of his face. So that's describing, here that's describing the voice, like the performance, and then this is describing what she's doing. So you have two different things going on in this one parenthetical, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. Oh, no, don't do this. Don't do this. Now, they could do it, back then, because this was the 1940s, and they didn't have the formatting down pat yet, the way we do now. But this is the kind of thing where if you put it in your screenplay nowadays, 80 years later, it's going to be looked down upon, okay? So don't do it. Because this, a trace of spitefulness, if you absolutely had to, you could put this in parentheses and say spitefully, add an ly, spitefully. But really, you shouldn't have to do that at all. That should be in what the line is. It should be on the context of the scene, all that kind of stuff. And then this, where it tells what she's doing, that should be up here, right? Leans over to look at him in the eye. Maybe you do now. So that kind of thing. If it's describing what's happening, it should probably be in a description. The only time when you don't do that is when it's directly relevant to the dialogue. Like right here, there could be somebody else in the scene. So there's Roxanne and there's Jackson. And this line is not said to Jackson, but is said into the telephone, right? So that's why you would put that to clarify. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about. And just to harp on that even more, these are the reasons that you should use Wrylies, if at all. It should be for someone's actions, to emphasize something, or provide clarity, okay? And that's what I was talking about, like with the phone. It describes the way that the line is said. So if someone's whispering, if someone's coughing, if that is important enough to the story and is not based on the creative choice of the actor and the director, then yeah, you can describe it, but only if it's necessary. Same thing for emphasis. If, well, like I said, talking to the telephone, or if there's multiple people in a scene, like if you have, imagine you have some kind of rom-com, and you have 5 different people all talking at once, but they're not all talking to each other, okay? So you've got Bob and Sally that are talking to each other, and then you have Bill and Eric who are talking to each other in this big whirlwind of dialogue. You would need to say to Eric, or to Bob and Sally, that kind of thing, if they're specifically saying one thing to a certain individual or group rather than everyone in the scene. Otherwise, it'll get confusing who's talking to who. And remember that emphasis is not about emotion, right? It's not about emotion. It's about the way the dialogue is being used in the scene, who it's directed at, and then clarity. The only time you would want to include some kind of emotion is if the line being said cannot be understood without this in place. So, bless your heart. If you're from the South, you know this. Oh, bless your heart. That can be a genuine expression of sympathy. Bless your heart. But it can also be a side-eye, sarcastic, making fun of somebody type of thing. So, oh, bless your heart. You know, you can really make fun of somebody with that. You can cut deep with this line. And if this wasn't here, it would be unclear the intention behind the line. Okay? And usually that's something that is wry or sarcastic or is a double entendre or is a joke, something like that. And that is the only time when you would want to really include this in a way that's not describing the way it's being said in these other manners.
If this video has helped you become a better screenwriter and storyteller, then I encourage you to check out my comprehensive online course called Master Screenplay Format. It'll teach you everything from the basics through intermediate all the way to advanced techniques so that you can use grammar and wordsmithing along with proper formatting to become an excellent screenwriter. And if you'd like to learn more before you buy the course, then I've also got a link in the description for a free masterclass on how to write with invisible camera angles, so that you can have something you can use immediately to apply to your writing and also get a preview for the type of knowledge that we'll cover in the course. Thank you, and I hope to see you in Master Screenplay Format.